Hello everyone and welcome to 5 Minute German. In today's video, we will learn the concept of modal verbs. Learning this concept will help you make better sentences and you can use these sentences in the A1 written part so that you can get better marks. I have divided this concept into two parts. In the first part, which is this video, we will learn about modal verbs, their conjugation and sentence structure. And in the second part, we will learn about how to make Wir-Fragen and Ja-Nein-Fragen with modal verbs. So let's not waste any time and let's get started. So we will start by first of all understanding what are modal verbs. Then we will take a look at the different types of modal verbs in German. Then we will see the conjugation of these modal verbs in presence or the present tense. And along with it, we will see the sentence structure. And I will also give you example sentences which use modal verbs. Then in the helpful tips sections, I will give you some tips to remember the conjugations for modal verbs, and at the end I will give you a self-check form for practicing what you have learned. So are you ready to learn about modal verbs? I know you are. So let's learn them. So what are modal verbs? Modal verbs are verbs which show the attitude or mood towards an action. What do I mean by this? Let's see an example. So a normal sentence will be, I learn German. Now this sentence tells you that I am learning German, but it does not give you any other information. Now if I say the same sentence in another way as I want to learn German, then over here the verb want is the modal verb which shows my desire to learn German, and it comes along with the main verb which is learn in this case. Let's take another example. So I exercise every day. Now if I was training for a competition, then I can say I must exercise every day. So over here must is the modal verb which shows my obligation that I have to exercise every day, and exercise is the main verb which comes with the modal verb. So similarly in German, the modal verb is used together with the infinitive form of the main verb, and all modal verbs are irregular verbs. These are verbs whose stem changes when they are conjugated. If you want to understand about irregular verbs, then you can take a look at my video on irregular verbs, which I will link in the description below. In German, we have 6 modal verbs, and these are wollen, which means want to, können, which means can or able to, sollen, which means should, müssen, which means must, dürfen, which means allowed to, and mögen, which means to like. So I will explain each of these in detail right now. So let's start with wollen. So wollen is a modal verb which expresses your desire or wish for something that you want. And just like other verbs, it is also conjugated when it comes with a personal pronoun. So the conjugation for wollen will be ich will, du willst, es sie will, wir wollen, ihr wollt, sie wollen, and sie wollen. Now let's see how we can make sentences with wollen. So a normal sentence without the modal verb will be Ich lerne Deutsch. This is the same example that we saw earlier. So I learn German. Now in this sentence, lerne is the conjugated main verb which comes at the second position. And we know that in German, the verb always comes at the second position. Now let's make the same sentence with a modal verb. And since the personal pronoun is ich, so we will use the conjugation will. So the sentence will be Ich will Deutsch lernen. I want to learn German. Now in this sentence, will is the conjugated modal verb which comes at the second position, and lernen is the main verb which has gone to the end of the sentence in the infinitive form. So you see how lerne has been converted to lernen when it is used with the modal verb. Let's take another example, this time with wir. So if the normal sentence is wir machen eine Pause, we are taking a break. Over here, machen is the conjugated main verb which comes at the second position. The same sentence with the modal verb will be wir wollen eine Pause machen. We want to take a break. Over here again, wollen is the modal verb in conjugated form which comes at the second position, and the main verb goes to the end of the sentence in the infinitive form. So from these examples, we can say that the rule for modal verbs is that a modal verb comes at the second position in conjugated form, and that the main verb goes to the last position in infinitive form. Now keep this rule in mind as we make example sentences with the rest of the modal verbs. So the second modal verb is können, which means can or able to. and it expresses something you can do or are able to do. The conjugation for können in the present tense or presence will be ich kann, du kannst, sie kann, wir können, ihr könnt, sie können, and sie können. Let's take an example sentence with ich. Ich kann gut Fußball spielen. I can play football well. So over here we see that kann is the modal verb in conjugated form which comes at the second position, and because of this the main verb goes to the end in the infinitive form, which is spielen in this case. Let's take another example with the personal pronoun sie, which is the third person plural. So the sentence is sie können nicht kommen. They cannot come. Again over here we see that können is the conjugated modal verb at second position, and kommen is the main verb in infinitive form which goes to the end of the sentence. So this was the modal verb können in present tense. Let's take a look at sollen, which means should, and it is used to give a recommendation or advice which is not mandatory. The conjugation for sollen in present tense will be ich soll, du sollst, sie soll, wir sollen, ihr sollt, sie sollen, and sie sollen. An example sentence with sollen will be du sollst in Deutschland studieren. You should study in Germany. So this is an advice which you are giving to someone that you should study in Germany. So this sentence also follows the same rule, which is sollst, the modal verb comes at the second position, and studieren is the main verb which goes to the end of the sentence in infinitive form. Another example will be wir sollen mehr Wasser trinken. We should drink more water. Here sollen, which is the modal verb, comes at the second position in conjugated form, and trinken, which is the main verb, goes to the end of the sentence in infinitive form. Now let's move on. So the next modal verb is müssen, which means must, and it expresses something that you must do, which is mandatory for you. The conjugation for müssen in presence or present tense is ich muss, du musst, sie muss, wir müssen, ihr müsst, sie müssen, and sie müssen. An example for müssen will be du musst pünktlich sein. You must be on time. This shows that it is mandatory for you that you are on time. Here musst, which is the modal verb in conjugated form, comes at the second position, and sein, which is the main verb in infinitive form, goes to the end of the sentence. Another example can be ich muss die Hausaufgaben machen. I must do the homework. The next modal verb is dürfen, which means allowed to, and this expresses permission to do or not do something. The conjugation for dürfen in the present tense are ich darf, du darfst, sie darf, wir dürfen, ihr dürft, sie dürfen, sie dürfen. Now suppose that you have received your driving license. Then an example with the modal verb dürfen will be ich darf Auto fahren. I am allowed to drive a car. If you did not have the driving license, then you would not be allowed to drive a car. Another example with dürfen will be ihr dürft hier nicht rauchen. Here ihr is the second person plural, so it means you all, and this sentence is translated as you all are not allowed to smoke here. And now the last modal verb is mögen, which means to like, and it is used to show your liking for something, specifically things or people. The conjugation for mögen in the present tense is ich mag, du magst, sie mag, wir mögen, ihr mögt, sie mögen, and sie mögen. Now an example with mögen will be ich mag Pizza. I like pizza. Here mag is the modal verb in the conjugated form, but you might be wondering, where is the main verb in infinitive form? So in case of mögen, you must remember that we do not use the verb when we use the modal verb mögen in present tense. As I said, that this is used only with things or people, and in the sentence mag is both the modal verb and the main verb. So we don't need any extra verb at the end of the sentence. Now if I used mögen with a verb, for example, ich mag schwimmen, I like to swim, then this will not be correct. So just keep this in mind that you will use the modal verb mögen in the present tense only with things or people and not with a verb. So these were the 6 modal verbs in the present tense. Now I know that you might be saying that there are so many conjugations. How will I remember the conjugations for all of these modal verbs? So for that you don't have to worry, because I will give you some tips to remember the modal verb conjugations. So here is an overview of all the modal verbs that we learned and their conjugations in the present tense or presents. Now first of all, let's take the first person singular and the third person singular, which is ish and ASZ forms. So for this, the tip that I have for you is that the ish and ASZ forms are the same. As you see over here, ish will and ASZ will. Ish kan, ASZ kan. So if you just memorize one of these, then you can use it with the other personal pronoun as well. Now let's take a look at the first person plural, third person plural, and the formal pronouns, which are wir, sie, and sie. For these forms, the tip is that their conjugation is the same as the infinitive form. As you see over here, wir wollen, the infinitive form is also wollen. Sie wollen, the infinitive form is also wollen, and so on. Now let's take a look at the conjugations with the personal pronoun du. So the tip to remember these conjugations is that these conjugations are made by using the first person singular conjugation and adding the ending st at the end. So you can see that the first part of the conjugation is the same as the conjugation with the first person singular. So we see that ish will and du will with the ending st at the end. The only exception over here is with du musst. So over here the ending is not st, rather only t, but this is because we already have 2 s's in musst, so you don't have to add another s in the ending. And the last is ihr, which is the second person plural. So in this case you will have to memorize the stem, which is the first part of the verb. However, a tip is that all of these conjugations with ihr have the ending t. So you just have to memorize the first part and then add the ending t. So these are the modal verbs in present tense. You can take a screenshot of this part so that you can use it for future reference. And with this we come to the end. So my suggestion now will be that go and practice modal verbs by writing and speaking, because these have a different structure, so it might take you some time to adjust to it. But the more you practice by writing it and speaking it, the better you will get at it, and then it will not be difficult for you. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. If you have any comments or any questions, please let me know in the comments below. I have also prepared a self-check form for you so that you can practice what you have learned. You can find the link in the description below. If you have not yet seen my videos on Wehrfragen and Ja-Nein-Fragen, then you can check them out over here. So thank you very much for your time and see you in the next video.